In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about angles and line relationships. Now, before we get into diving into these problems with involving different figures with angles and lines and different geometric figures, I want to be able to define some of the angle relationships that exist. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about supplementary angles. So if we look at this problem right here in number 3, okay, we have, once I get this all ready to go, there we go. If I look at this number 3, I have a figure. We have two lines intersecting, okay? A pair of supplementary angles are a pair of angles that form a straight line. So for example, this angle right here and this angle right here, both together form a straight line, meaning that this is 180 degrees. So those are called supplementary angles. Another type of angles we have in this diagram are vertical angles. Vertical angles are formed when you have two intersecting lines and they are located opposite each other in those intersecting lines. So, for example, this line right here, this angle right here, and this angle right here. Those are considered vertical angles. And what you have to know about vertical angles is that they are congruent, meaning that they are the same measure in degree. Okay. Another terminology, another term we're going to use in this section is adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that share a common side. All right. So, and I could have used the supplementary angles we talked about before, but I'll use the other ones, these supplementary angles. So we have this angle right here, and we have this angle right here. They are adjacent because they share this common side that points to the bottom right. All right. So and that's also called a ray. So not only are these supplementary angles in this case, they are adjacent. Not all adjacent angles are supplementary, just in this problem. And we'll look at it in another problem where there's supplementary angles, adjacent angles that are not supplementary. So now let's talk about the angle measure of this problem. First of all, you have to know that all of these angles, okay, all the angles in this diagram are going to add up to 360 degrees. Okay, that's where I start off. All right. So that's a good way to check at the end if they all do. Now, what I try to look for first is the vertical angles. Okay, if you have two intersecting lines like here we had before, we have this angle which is 27 degrees and the vertical angle over here which is also going to be 27 degrees. Okay. Also, we know that the angle next to the 27 degrees is called an adjacent angle. So this angle right here, they are going to form a line, so it is going to be 180 degrees in the line. So to figure it out, I do 180 minus 27, which is 153 degrees. So those two angles together will form 180. And now with also in this diagram, this angle down here is also 153 degrees because they are vertical angles. So it's really important that we're able to recognize the different types of angle relationships and understand the names, and it'll just make it quicker when we figure out all these diagrams. And to double check myself, you do 153 plus 153 plus 27 plus 27, and it is 360. So it adds all up to 360. All right, let's look at another diagram. Number 6 here. Okay, so we have different types of angles, like I said before. This one's a little different. Whenever you see this little box here, okay, this box means it's a 90-degree angle. Okay, so whenever you see a box, that means it's going to be 90 degrees. Okay. Now, that box is broken down into two angles. We have one angle here, two adjacent angles. One angle here, and one angle here. Now, knowing that those two angles form a 90-degree angle, and this angle right here is 35 degrees, to figure out what the other angle is, you would do 90 minus 35 degrees, which is 55 degrees. So this angle right here is 55 degrees. Now, there's another term that wasn't in the last one called complementary angles. So complementary angles are two adjacent angles that share a common ray, common side, so that's the common side they share, and they also add up to 90 degrees. So this angle right here and this angle right here add up to 90 degrees. So that's what's called complementary. So complementary add up to 90 degrees, supplementary add up to 180. Okay. Now, knowing that that's 90 degrees and it lies on a straight line, remember we know a straight line is 180 degrees. That means the other angle over here is going to be pretty much everything just left over, right? So we're going to take, there's different ways you can do these problems. Just because I do them one single way doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. So to figure out this kind of purple angle that I formed here, you would do either 180 minus 90, which is also 90. And we know that 90 plus 90 is 180, so this is also going to be a box. So technically I could have put a box here also. Right? One last term I want to introduce is that whenever you have two lines that intersect to form a box or a right angle, for example, let me do this in different colors, pink. So if I have this line here and this line right here, those are called perpendicular lines. These two lines form right angles. Okay, so perpendicular lines form right angles. Whenever lines never intersect, they're called parallel lines. So we talked about parallel lines that never intersect. Perpendicular lines are two lines that meet to form right angles. Complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees, so that little box, like we talked about before. Supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees, and which is a straight line. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common side and a common common side. And vertical angles were just like the ones we talked about in the previous problem that are opposite each other. Okay, so that's it for today's video. If you have questions in class with these diagrams, please let me know.